everybody and welcome back to the channel. Now this is something very different, admittedly, very different. First of all, Scout, I haven't done a deadline stream for a long time, but we're here now and we're doing a deadline day stream. Something a bit different potentially, and to be honest, part of this I really want to get involved in your guys' questions. So if you've got any questions about the game week, obviously naturally we're going to look at the captaincy situation. Will we go for Palmer or will we go for Salah? Because I've got an interesting take about where you should go with that. I don't think, for the record, either way is a horrendous shout. I think anyone sort of arguing that this is Palmer all day or it's Salah all day, then I think you're having a laugh personally. I think it's a pretty much 50-50 call. But I have a reason why I'm going with one of them. So we'll get into that. There are also the usual stuff where we'll get into like the best transfers of the week. So people looking at, because I know I'm going to get asked who's the best defender, who's the best midfielder, and who's the best attacker. So we'll have a look at that. And also as well, and more important news than all of that, the last video I did a dilemmas video, a deadline day dilemmas video recently, and there was comments on that video at the time which I reacted to, saying that I'm from Manchester. Now this is an absolute no-no. This has to end. I am not from Manchester, I'm from Yorkshire, and I said it at the time, but this cannot be a thing. Me being from Manchester cannot be a thing. Last night I celebrated Leeds United winning 3-1 away at Sheffield United in our biggest game of the season. And that is because I am a Leeds fan through and through, and I'm also a Yorkshire through and through. I'm not from Lancashire, and I am certainly not from Manchester, although I did go to uni there. So there is that. But yeah, and also it's obviously pretty new as well to me, this, so if there's anything you don't like or whatever, then let me know in the comments below. But I'm just going to go through and fire through as many questions as possible. But before we do that, let's move on to the next slide. Look at this. Bosh. That's the wrong screen. Look at that, we've made a mistake already. Now, if we go here, we're away. There we are. But yeah, let's have a look at some of your questions. That is my team for this week. I've just let it go. I've updated it. As you can see, I am on Palmer captaincy, which I will talk about in a second. But I do want to get into some of your guys' comments as well. So let's have a look at some of the comments then. The first one, Dorgu as a punt. To be honest, I have been quite impressed with Dorgu actually so far. I think he's done pretty well. However, if I'd punt on Dorgu, I'm not as sure, to be honest. My feeling is with Dorgu that yes, I agree, potentially could be a really nice punt, but I just think there's better options out there. I still like, especially if you're going to free hit 29, I still really like actually Muniz as an option. I think he's a really good shout. So for me, that's a bit of a no, to be honest. Let's have a look at anyone others. Pickford or Sells? I've got Pickford at the moment, so I'd have to recommend him. And also Sells, I think with the fixtures going on right now, I'm not 100% convinced on it either way as well. So yeah, for me, I would probably go, if I'm going to pick one of them two, for me it'd probably be Pickford, potentially as well, just because the fixtures. And also like Forest, when I watched them at the weekend, they were pretty poor defensively. They were pretty poor. Let's have a look at a few more then. Bench one of Vissa, Dango or Gakpo. Do you know what it is? Potentially because I don't know what his fitness situation is like on his fitness right now, and you don't know if he's going to start the game. I think I would bench Gakpo is my feeling. Start Hall or Mikalenko? Probably Mikalenko just. There's no way, unless you're going to get attacking returns from Lewis Hall, which you might do. For me, there's not really a way that they keep a clean sheet, in my opinion. So that's the situation with that for me. Anyway, let's talk about captaincy, and then I'll come back to some of your guys' comments. I'm on Palmer. That is my shout. I'm going with Palmer. That's the way I'm going to go with it. And the reason for this is a number of things. And I'm going to read you through some stats because I have actually done a bit of research for you lot. Now, apologies, I'm looking down. It's just, that's where it all is. But at home, now obviously let's bear this in mind here. Salah at home is not as good as Salah away. Salah away has got 12 out of his 15 away games so far this season. 12 of them have been double-digit hauls. Whereas actually, and obviously Palmer's sort of for the most part struggled actually away from home. However, on the contrary, at home, it's quite close, actually. It's quite close. Salah has collected so far this season 103 points at home. That's how many he's collected. Palmer is currently on 96 points at home. So that's something to bear in mind. So there's only actually, a 7-point swing between Salah at home and Palmer at home. That's one thing. Then I look at the XG created, or the XGI of the last sort of 6 games at home. Salah 10.65, Palmer 9.06. And now, if you're looking at this data so far, Salah's got more points at home, and he's also been involved in more sort of XGI as well at home. So then you're thinking, well, this is a definite one-way selection. Again, it's got to be Salah. But I move on. I digress. I want to look at Southampton, who obviously this is the big swing in it. Is it Southampton, or are you going to go against the Newcastle defence? Now I think we all know Salah. If Salah was playing Southampton, we're picking Salah, but he isn't. He's playing Newcastle. He's got the harder fixture. Now, the last 6 games, Southampton have conceded 15.41 XG in the last 6. Now, compared to Newcastle, who conceded 9.89, there is a severe difference there. It's about 50% more. Southampton have conceded 50% more XG over the last 6, more than 50% more XG over the last 6 than Southampton. And that's a big one for me. That's a huge one, because then again with Palmer in the sort of Chelsea team, if XG comes from them, it usually comes from him. I digress further. Chelsea over the last 6 games as well have created 12.01 XG compared to Liverpool's, which is bang on 10 XG, which is bizarre, but it's bang on 10 XG over the last 6. So not only does Southampton concede miles more XG than Newcastle, like we know and like we probably expected, 50% more, but Chelsea technically create more XG as well. 2 more XG over the last 6 games. Now there is something to bear in mind here, of course, which is that naturally the Liverpool forwards take the chances better. I mean, Salah's XAs is very low compared to the amount of assists he's got, so I get that, and the likes of Gakpo and Salah are clinical. They are much more clinical than the Chelsea attack, which we've seen sort of throughout the season. But having said that, that is quite surprising. So Chelsea created more XG and also playing against a much worse defence. Finally, on the predicted goals for this evening, or for the games this game week, Liverpool are at 2.4 and Chelsea are at 3. Do you see what I mean? Now, I get all this, and I get what people are going to say in the comments, but that's what sort of where I stand on it, really. I sort of look at the numbers, and I just think this week, I still think a lot are going to go Salah, and as I said, I really, really do not think that if you go Salah, that's a bad take at all. I think Salah makes sense. He's been consistent throughout the season. I think I probably captained him for the last 10 weeks going or something crazy. But this week, with that Southampton home game, I don't know. I just think that Palmer this week could be the shout. But for me, as I said, it is close. But there's some interesting data. So the data points to sort of re-go over it. Southampton naturally concede 50% more XG than Newcastle on average. So they concede 50% more. My mic keeps falling, and now it's just... See, look at that. See, what happened there is my mic fell and then hit my dash cam and then changed it. But yeah, on average, Southampton, 50% more XG conceded. And like I said, Chelsea actually create more chances than Liverpool, technically, as well. So I think that makes it just a Palmer. That's my feeling. But yeah, I'm really interested actually with this for you to let me all know sort of what you think in the comments below as to if you're sort of on the wavelength or not about that. But yeah, anyway, let's have a look at some more chats from you guys in the comments. Bench one of Semenyo, Utara, or Chris Wood. Semenyo, Utara, or Wood. Now there is a development around Evan Nielsen. Obviously, we'd expect him to feature in this game, so that might take minutes off Utara, no doubt about that. However, I don't know. Semenyo and Utara for me have been quite neck and neck for a while now. But Utara's been created naturally. Has been getting on the score sheet a lot more with that sort of number 9 role that he's been playing in. So my feeling is, reluctantly, I won't bench Chris Wood. I just don't. The guy's fixture proof for me, absolutely fixture proof. Like even at the weekend, Newcastle away, tricky game, still gets an assist. But for me, on that one, I would just edge it to Semenyo. I think I would. Let's have a look then. Keep Hall or transfer to Kirkes or Colwell? Keep Hall. Depends what you're going to do in game week 29, and it also, if you're going to free hit game week 29, I'd just keep Hall. That's my feeling. But if you're going to free at 29, if you're not going to free at 29, then obviously you get the extra fixture bomb moving to Kirkez, and Kirkez actually plays Southampton in that 29 as well. So I would probably, no, it doesn't actually. The Wolves do, but yeah, it does play in 29 regardless. So my feeling would be transfer to Kirkez just. I don't think Colwell. I don't really like Colwell as a pick. I get he's cheap and I get he's away into that Chelsea defence, which have got 2 nice games coming up, Southampton and Leicester at home. I understand sort of why people want to go there, but for me, just I would keep Hall. Would be my feeling. Would you go Mateta over Palmer? Sorry, I'm having to read off my phone, which is a bit annoying. But would you go Mateta over Palmer for captain? Mateta likes to score every home game. However, feels like ceiling than Palmer. Would you take Mateta over Palmer for captain? No. I wouldn't, mate. I wouldn't. I guess I know what you're trying to do, and you're going to get back to get my point. And I get that. As I said, I think Salah's a really good choice, like I said. But I'm on Palmer. Take it, you captain Palmer. Then yes, I am, mate. I am. Let's have a look at some more questions. Let's have a look. Hey, I love the videos. Still, should I do Gakpo to Cunha this week or hold till game week 29 now? Should I do Gakpo to Cunha this week or hold till 29? I'd do Gakpo to Cunha this week, mate. I think Cunha's the best transfer in this week, comfortably, really. So I'd do that. There's also 51 of you in the chat now, so as I said, there's not tons of comments coming in, so if you do want your question answered, that's part of the show. I do want to get you guys involved and answer your questions that you may have before the deadline. But yeah, that's my feeling. So get your comments in and I will answer them. But yeah, let's have a look at some of the best defenders this week, though. So if you were to transfer in a defender this week, I know a lot of people won't, but I know there's people that you need to sell in defence. Obviously, someone in the comments has mentioned the possibility of bringing in Colwell, which I completely get. I think that makes sense as potentially, but I don't really like the sort of the lack of attacking output that you get from him. So my best selections for defence actually this week, I would go Aït-Nouri, guys. I think people are sleeping on Aït-Nouri. I think he's got 2 clean sheets his last 4 games. We know he's decent for attacking returns. We know he gets forward, and as I said, decent for attacking returns. I remember getting an attacking return away at West Ham not too long ago. And with the fixtures they've got coming up, they've got Fulham at home, they've got Everton at home. In fact, rather than me tell you, let me show you. So, go on Cunha, because he also plays for Wolves. I'll have to drag it a bit so you guys can actually see. But if I drag it, you should be able to see. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we are. So, Fulham at home, Everton at home, Southampton away. Then he's got West Ham, then Ipswich, then Spurs, then Man United. They're a season-long hold, I think, Wolves' assets now. Obviously, Cunha is the best transfer in the forward section. But I do think Aït-Nouri, with them fixtures specifically, makes him a really good option this week in the defender. And again, I've not heard a lot about him, but I think you've just got to admire them fixtures, really. And also, I remember at the start of the season, I don't know if anyone else remembers it, but at the start of the season, Wolves had a really bad run, and to be honest, they've had a really bad run over the last few weeks as well. Obviously, they've lost a few. I know they won against Bournemouth, but for the most part, they have lost. They've lost quite considerably recently. But they went, as I said, their fixtures have been spread out quite. They've got basically good patches and bad patches. They had a really bad patch at the start, and then they went through a really good patch, if anyone remembers. And Cunha actually in that period of time was fantastic, and basically everybody owed him. I remember that did he get 2 goals and assist away at Fulham, and he got like 16 points in 1 week, and he was an absolutely fantastic asset to own. And they've got that run again. In fact, they've got Fulham this weekend, haven't they? Of course, this week against Fulham. And I think this is going to be the start of the Cunha sort of raise again. And I think, as I said, he's already scored in his last 3 as well. So even if you're scared of is the form there? Well, the form's there as well. Over the last few weeks. So yeah, with Wolves, what I'm saying is that last time they were in this position, we saw the run that they went on, and they actually went on a decent run, and especially Cunha went on a great run. And I think this is the time to buy him. In fact, I even recommended buying him last week when I was on the Deadline Dilemma stream, because I just felt that actually he was sort of an elite transfer. because I even remember at the start of the last run, if you remember, he played Brighton away and he actually scored in that game, and then he obviously carried on the fantastic run. I think they had like Southampton at home and potentially maybe Crystal Palace at home and loads of really good fixtures. But they have that exact run again. So it's time to buy into Wolves assets. I'm sure of it. I'm absolutely sure. Let's have a look anyway at some more questions. What do you think about Watkins to Cunha? Do you know that's really funny, mate? Because that's exactly the transfer I've done this week. Yeah, I've done Watkins to Cunha. That was my selection for this week. That was my transfer. So what do I think of the transfer? I think it's a really, really good one. Anyway, let's go back to my team so we can actually see my team. Can you see it? Yeah, there we are. So yeah, I would do Watkins to Cunha. Bench Jared Bowen or Kluivert. Oh mate, that's a tricky one. But I would say Kluivert. I actually think Bowen again in terms of midfielders, and we're going to get on to midfielders about who is the best transfer. For me, Kluivert. Yeah, I get he's on penalties and I get he's been on a really good run, but the Brighton away game's not brilliant. I'm not sort of totally pleased about starting Atara myself, to be honest, in that fixture. So yeah, I would start Jared Bowen. Also, he's got Leicester at home. I mean, let's be honest, everyone watched Leicester on Friday night. I had Mbeumo and Vista, so it's fair to say I enjoyed my Friday night. But if you're a Leicester fan, and one of my good mates is, they're in a bad place. So they're definitely the team's target. I think them and Southampton for me are the teams to target, which is bizarre that Chelsea have got them back to back. But yeah, they're in a really bad way. Anyway, so Watkins to Marmoush. If you don't have Cunha, I really like Marmoush as a punt because every time I watch him, he's really lively. I thought it was a bit unlucky to not get anything out of the Liverpool game, to be honest. I obviously had that goal offside, but he's constantly involved in it as well. And he obviously got that hat-trick that we saw against Newcastle. And I do think he has got that sort of potentially more than Cunha, actually. I think Cunha's going to be there with consistency. I think you're just going to get return after return after return, week after week. And he's also brilliant for bonus points. But I think with Marmoush, you've got, I think with especially playing in that Man City attack, you've got that upside where he could get a massive haul. Like he obviously got his hat-trick against Newcastle. I think he has got that sort of upside. So if you've already got Cunha, or even if you haven't got Cunha, and you maybe want a more differential upside pick, I don't hate Marmoush at all. I really don't. Captain Bowen? Not for me, mate. I think that Bowen, as I said, I think he's a brilliant transfer this week. A really good transfer. And if I had to make a midfield transfer, I probably would be looking at Jared Bowen. Them two home fixtures, I said Leicester at home we've talked about. And also Newcastle at home I don't think is a particularly poor fixture either. As we know, I think Newcastle are always better at home, really. So I don't hate him as a transfer. In fact, I really like him as a transfer. But having said that, is he a captain shout over Palmer against Southampton? He's just not, mate. If you did want to go completely differential, maybe, but I don't really like that. Bench Bowen or Clive I've done. Start two, bench one. So Dango, Semenyo and Wood. I think I've already been asked this, mate. But if I was to do that, I would bench Semenyo. I think he's. I just don't think he's quite got the upside. I like Utara right now, and the reason I've got him in my team is I just like the upside. I think, obviously, Kluivert's had that mega haul. I don't think Semenyo's quite had that mega haul, and I don't think he's quite got the upside to his game. Kluivert's amazing because he's got penalties, and Utara's amazing because he plays up front and gets tons of chances. But Semenyo, for me, he's the third best Bournemouth asset right now. Having said that, when Evan Nielsen comes back, which potentially will be coming soon, that might change that, I suppose. But yeah, for that reason, I would bench Semenyo this week. Bench one out of Gvardiol, Robinson and Gabriel. Well, as you can see, I've got Gabriel bench myself, and I'm starting Robinson, so I guess that answers a bit of it. Gvardiol, my feeling would be I would bench Gabriel. I think I would. I really like Gvardiol. I think the upside again he offers with the attacking returns is brilliant, and I guess Gabriel's done that. But against the Forest team again, who are usually pretty decent defensive, I know they've been really poor actually in the last few weeks defensively, but they're also playing it away as well at Arsenal. And my feeling is that's the play. They've got the best fixtures in the season. I presume you mean that for Wolves, and yeah, I agree. I think they've got by far the best. They've got the best fixtures. I actually think they'll stay up constantly now. I think that win that they got, that Wolves obviously got against Bournemouth as well, is massive for their season because it sort of takes the pressure off a bit. They've got that 5-point gap now to Ipswich and Leicester, which is really important, and hopefully means they play with a bit more freedom and potentially open up a bit more and get a few more attacking returns because we know, the likes of Cunha and stuff could become a really good option. I actually think potentially Strand Larsen could be a shout as well, or Guedes, who I think plays a lot more now. He could be a really good option too. Bench Cliver, Dango, Isak, Mateta, or Cunha. Well, I wouldn't be benching Cunha because I've basically bigged him up. I mean, that would be ridiculous if I bench Cunha now. But I wouldn't bench Isak either. No way. They're far too good in Newcastle. Even I know they're playing again at Anfield, but yeah, I just can't look past that. So I would probably bench out of them lot Ouattara just because of the minutes. And I know I've said earlier that I like the upside of him. But with Evan Nielsen coming back, I think it's a bit of a risk. So yeah, I would play Cliver, I would play Isak, I would play Mateta as well. I think he's again been on fantastic form. I think he's a really good option. But I would obviously play Cunha. I have Watkins, Isak. Do you recommend? Who do you recommend now or roll till 29? I mean, I've Cunha, mate. Get Cunha. Bench Isak or Kluivert? I would bench Kluivert. Yeah, I'd bench Kluivert. Again, Isak, the form Isak's in. I think he scored at Anfield last year as well, didn't he? I believe. I think I'm pretty sure he did score last year. But the guy's an unbelievable finisher, to be honest. So yeah. I actually think Isak's potentially fixture proof. I know he obviously blanked against Man City recently, so maybe that would go against that logic. But yeah, I think for me, it would. I'd bench Kluivert all day. Captain Neto as a differential, Rob says. No, no, I wouldn't do that, mate. Neto as a differential for me is not the one. No, I wouldn't go there. I actually think you enough on Palmer as a different. I think Palmer's a differential as it is, mate. So yeah, I'm not. Also, I'm not 100% convinced Neto will start either. Bench Odegaard or Enzo? That's a decent one. Bench. What would you all do? If you're listening now? What would you do? Bench Odegaard or bench Enzo Fernandez? For me, I would go for tricky. I'd probably bench Odegaard, I probably would. He's just not... Arsenal not creating a lot of chances, and I think obviously they're missing Saka's output dramatically, not just from a goal scoring standpoint, but even a sort of a creative standpoint as well. I think they're massively missing Saka, and obviously that extension, and they obviously have lost Martinelli as well. So I don't think he's getting a lot of chances. Like when Odegaard's sort of getting a load of moments, he's getting them pullbacks from the wing areas, and I don't think he's quite getting that now. So I'd probably punt at Enzo just because the fixture. I think I like the fixture in terms of I can see the upside in Enzo, and obviously he went on that goal scoring run. Obviously scored against Villa as well recently. So I would go with him because I think you could get a really nice return. Watkins to Cunha looking good. Crystal Palace form is kind of good. Yeah, I agree. As I said, that's been my move this week. Watkins to Cunha I think will be really popular this week. Obviously it's what I've done. I think I really like that as a play. Don't have Palmer. Good luck, Rob. Good luck, because I think this week I'd be worried not owning Palmer this week. I get why you have him, and actually I think later on, I think when we do a deadline day stream in a few weeks' time, after obviously Chelsea have played against Leicester, and they've played obviously against Southampton tonight, I think you're potentially looking at moving Palmer on then. I quite like the idea of bringing Haaland actually in Gameweek 29. Controversial potentially, but there we are. But right now, I mean, you've got to have Palmer, haven't you, for this game? I have the assistant manager card, and I still have it on Emery. Would you swap him for anyone for a -4? My last round with assistant manager, thinking Wolves or Chelsea manager. Well, it's an interesting point, mate, because I do actually have down to talk about sort of where you would go with assistant manager. So I'm glad you've sort of brought it up there. To answer your question, I think that them two are by far the best managers this week. I think, obviously, if you want something a bit more safe and secure, then obviously I think Maresca's the play. But we've seen this before with Arteta at the weekend, where everyone thought that's the safe play, and then potentially punt on a Glasner, punt on a Ruud van Nistelrooy, punt on McKenna, not poo on a McKenna, that would be a bit odd, but punt on McKenna, and of course the winner was obviously Glasner owners. That was the play. However, I do think, on the contrary to that, I do think obviously Southampton are much worse than West Ham, and I'm pretty confident that Chelsea will win the game. So it depends if you're chasing upside or not. I would move off. I would definitely move off Emery for the record. I wouldn't stay on Emery at all. I actually think that Aston Villa's away record has been sort of poor for a long time now. It has been for a really long time. That they really massively struggle away from home, sort of contrary to what they do at home. So I would be looking to move him on. As I said, it just depends the way you want to play the game. Do you want to play that more risky play, or do you want to go for the sort of safer pick? If I was to do one, just because I was a Glasner owner last week, I think, and I love the upside, and I think part of this managership is sort of chasing this table bonus. I know people like to play the more safe route and go with slot and stuff, but I think we have seen so far, Moyes has been a top scorer when he was the sort of differential table bonus pick against slot. Then we had Emery who outscored slot again from table bonus from a draw. Then last week again, the safe picks failed in terms of Arteta, and Glasner won. So I would follow the trend. I think you follow the trend, and I think if I was you, I'd go with Victor Pereira, because I actually do think Wolves will win the game as well. I do think Wolves will win against Fulham. Fulham are a funny team. They're fantastic if you want to get table bonus from them. In terms of, I think when they play the top teams, they're really good. I mean, they've obviously beat Notts Forest quite recently for that massive table bonus. So I think you are going to get really good table bonus consistently out of Marco Silva. But I think also they're a really good team to target if you're a lower end team, because I talked about this. I do a sort of spaces with a guy called Lewis and Chris, obviously. I'm sure you're aware of who Chris is. And we were talking last week sort of about where to go with Fulham, and I said if you look at Fulham's form actually against the lower teams, they've really struggled. I know they've beat Leicester away recently, but they beat Leicester home and away. But Ipswich recently, they've drawn 2-2 at home, and it took a last-minute penalty to get a 2-2 draw at home. They couldn't even beat Southampton at home. They drew 0-0 in that game. They got hammered by Wolves earlier in the season, 4-1. Of course. So for me, if you sort of look at sort of where Fulham get the points from, it comes from the better teams. I think they are better against the better teams. So as I said, I felt all in. I think Victor Pereira and Wolves beat Fulham, and I think you're going to get a massive score from him. I really do. So that's my thinking. So my thinking is, to go back to your question, because I've talked about this enough, is that Maresca is your pick for me if you want a sort of safety pick, but I would go Victor Pereira because I would attack the tail bonus, and we've seen so far that that's been really effective. Play Sarr or Wood? I would play Chris Wood, mate. You just cannot bench Chris Wood. Have we not learned our lesson, people? You've got to start Chris Wood for me. You've got to start Chris Wood. Which three start out of Gabriel, Trent, Hodgson, and Muniz? Also have Raya. Which three would I start out of them four? I would probably start. I'd definitely start Trent. No doubt about it. There's no way I'm benching Trent. I can't bench Muniz in the form that he's in, so he definitely starts. And I think I would just go Gabriel just. I think I would just because I do think I think Bournemouth will concede at Brighton. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. That's the way I would go with. And I know you've got Ray, I get that, and I know you potentially don't want to protect it, but I just think you've got to play individually at points at times, and I just think Gabriel's a much better pick this week than Hudson, so there you are. Play Nwaneri or Morgan Rogers. Well, Rogers, I believe, has got a knock, mate, so Nwaneri for sure. Should I do Wood to Cunha? Who else have you got on your front three? Because I don't really like the removal of Chris Wood. I know the fixtures are not great, but as I said, he scored against Liverpool at home this year already, so there's no reason he can't score against an injury-depleted Arsenal. So yeah, for me, I'd probably just stay on Wood and I'd move one of your other strikers to him, depending on who you've got. I agree, I'm benching Odegaard. Nice to see, mate. Nice to see you agree. Let's have a look. Dango or Semenyo to bench? Semenyo, mate. Yeah, Semenyo. Should I do Isak to Cunha? Isak to Cunha? No, I wouldn't do. Again, he's another one that I'd keep you forwards. I actually did Isak to Watkins and it worked, and now I've moved him to Cunha. I won't be bringing Isak in by any means, but no, I wouldn't do Isak to Cunha. I don't think. Watkins to Cunha done. Good to hear it, mate. Good to hear it. Jeffrey says bench one of Wood, Wissa, and Semenyo. Wissa's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we haven't talked about Wissa, but obviously he was fantastic on Friday night. He got the 8 points, and obviously a goal with 2 bonus, which is fantastic. And to be honest with you, he's been brilliant all season, hasn't he? Especially at home, he's been electric. And even the games, the best thing about Wissa is even the games that he hasn't scored in, the chances are still there for him. So it's not like he has games where he's just completely anonymous like certain players. Every single game he gets chances because Brentford create tons of opportunities. So I think he's a lovely striker to own right now, and I've owned him from I think like game week 6 or something ridiculous, a long time. And the link up of Mbeumo and Vissa I think is just outstanding, and I think they're long holds. So yeah, I would start Vissa and I would bench Semenyo. Will Sanchez start? Usually Chelsea rotate midweek keepers. I don't think he will, mate. I think he'll go with Jorgensen again. That's my feeling. I think he will go Jorgensen. I know he made that mistake against Villa, and let's be honest, between me and you lot, Chelsea needs to buy a new keeper this summer. I don't think that's music to anyone's ears or the greatest take in the world, if not the most obvious take in the world, but I think they do need to buy a new keeper. That is my feeling. So, yeah. But I would go Jorgensen. I actually think, to be fair, I've written down sort of if people wanted advice on keepers, Jorgensen I think is a decent shout to bring in this week. Leicester and Southampton home next to, obviously Southampton and Leicester. I think that's a decent shout. If you do need a keeper, I think Jorgensen might be the one. That's my feeling. Let's have a look at some more. Cheers, I'll go Pereira. I mainly follow Swedish leagues, so I have no idea about bottom teams in the Prem. Let's go. Well, I hope I could help you in the best way possible. Who would you start? Gakpo, Dango, or João Pedro? Gakpo, Dango, or João Pedro? I would start... I don't really like the punt on Gakpo, but I just think I probably would. And I'd probably bench João Pedro. Yeah, I think I would. I think I'd bench Pedro. I think I would, yeah. Had 31 points on the bench last week from Pedro, Muniz and Areola. Could have been my third 100 week in a row. Yeah, I know. The benching decisions right now are really difficult, I think. There's been a lot of sort of close calls that could go either way. I think this week the one that's probably going to kill most people is obviously the Palmer versus Salah thing, because... like I said at the start of the video, I'm going to go with Palmer. That's the play I'm going to go with, as I talked about to death. If you want to watch what I'm sort of talked about with them too, then obviously you can sort of go back early in the show because I talked about it to death. But I am going with Palmer. But one way someone's getting stung here. I actually hope for sort of FPL's take and sort of to get rid of people who say it's lucky to play FPL. Because I do think it's such a close call this week. I hope they score similar. I think it's only fair if they score similar, sort of a similar points total this week. So that's what I hope happens. Hello, start Muniz or Rodgers? Leaning Rodgers. I'd start Muniz, mate. I'd start Muniz. Rodgers, I'm not 100% sure he's going to play. Or if he's going to play, I'm not sure he'll get 90 minutes. Also, I don't really like the fixture against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace defensively, I'm being absolutely fantastic as of late. I know they're playing at home, and I know Crystal Palace have been better away from them. I think Crystal Palace have won something like the last 4 away games, 2-0 something. They've been absolutely outrageously good away from home. But having said that, I still do think Munoz is the one to start. That's my feeling. Anyway, let's go over some other potential players that we potentially haven't talked about. And that is, I want to talk a bit about midfielders, and then I'll come back to some of your questions. So obviously we've mentioned Jared Bowen, but if you can't go with Jared Bowen and you don't own Mbeumo this week, I think Mbeumo might be the one, you know. Penalties, just come off a 14-pointer. Let's have a look at his fixtures like we do with other players. Let me get him up now. I'll have to obviously change my screen so you can actually see it. It's annoying that I have to do this, but you know, this is the way it will be. So he's obviously got Everton, then he's got Aston Villa, then he's got Bournemouth, and then obviously he's got a tricky spell. But even then, I think we had this situation with Brentford last time where everyone brought in Mbeumo and everyone sold Mbeumo, and then he started scoring against Arsenal and everybody. So for me, he's a long hold now. He's also brilliant at home as well. I think his points at home are much better than they are away, although he has been pretty consistently away. But yeah, I think if you can't go Jared Bowen this week and you don't own Mbeumo, who's obviously on my right hand side, he's the man to go with. I do think he's a really, really good option in midfield this week. Again, someone that I think is probably going to go under the radar a bit because of Jared Bowen being so good, and obviously Cunha being such a great transfer this week in attack, so I think people will save it. But if you are looking for a midfielder, I wrote down I need to talk about Mbeumo because this guy's so consistent, and for me, and he's still only 30% owned as well, like ridiculous. He's so consistent and so good. I think Mbeumo's a really, really good option this week. Is what I'm trying to say. But look at these fixtures, as I said. Everton at home, Villa at home. Again, we've talked about Villa being pretty poor at home. Then we've got then they've obviously got Bournemouth away, Newcastle away, who again concede a lot of chances. Even then you've got Chelsea at home, which is not awful. Arsenal away obviously is a pretty poor fixture, but you could probably bench him that week. Brighton at home, yeah, and then obviously after that you've got Forest away, which is not great. But then the last four are amazing as well, and you probably need him for that. So yeah, just go get him. He's so good. Go get him. He's actually up at 40% on now as well, which is ridiculous. But yeah, he's such a good option. Anyway, let's get back to your guys' questions. Let me go back to the screen that I want to be at. Let's move this back across so you can see it better. There we are. Right, so let's have a look at some more guys' questions. Start Raya or Areola? I'd start Areola, mate. Leicester can't score for toffee. If you ask any Leicester fan right now, they've got Jordan Ayew on one side and they've got Bobby De Cordova-Reid on the other, and they literally create nothing. They've got El Khanous in the middle, who's a really good player. And he sort of helps them where he can. But, I mean, I think the goal's in about 5 games now. I don't think they've scored since they played against Spurs, which is just typical Spurs. But, yeah, that's where I'd go. I would go Areola, because I actually think that Forest will score against Arsenal. I know that's potentially a bit of a pun, but that's what I think. Hi there. Would you sell Rodgers for a 6.4 million mid or just play João Pedro this week? I'd just play João Pedro, mate. I actually think saving your transfers right now is a really good strategy. I think you're going to need your transfers quite aggressively in a few weeks, especially if you're not wildcarding. Obviously, I'm looking at wildcarding probably 30 or 31 now, but if you're not going to do that, I think, yeah, I think keep your transfers is what I'm trying to say. Bench Hudson or Robinson, Howson at Bournemouth. I'd bench Howson, mate. I think, yeah, Robinson for me is a better option. Marmoush or Palmer captaincy? Palmer. Yeah, definitely Palmer. Yeah. Bowen or Neto? Bowen or Neto? Bowen, yeah. I don't think Neto's got the longevity after, because obviously I know he's got Southampton and obviously Leicester at home next year, which we've talked about that enough. But after that, he's obviously got Arsenal away, and the fixtures get a bit ropey. So I'm not convinced. Unless you're free hitting. If you're free hitting 29, you could, and then you wild card in 30. You could probably go Neto free hit 29, wild card 30, and you'd be all right. So if then I'd probably have a punt at that. But if not. I wish I could fit more midfielders. Yeah. So to be honest, mate, I think forwards and midfielders right now are brilliant. I think nobody is going to be on. I'd be surprised if any of you aren't actually 4 defenders. I think it's obviously going to be the 3 defenders this week, and either 5 midfielders and 2 strikers, or 4 midfielders and 3 up front. We've got a question from Lewis who says, "Who would you rather sell for Cunha, João Pedro?" Or Gakpo, also considering the current news. I would sell Gakpo. I'd sell Gakpo, yeah, that's what I'd do. Gakpo's fixtures are not outstanding anyway. I know he went through a sort of part of time where he wasn't rotated at all, but I do think the rotation will come with Gakpo, especially when you get to later rounds of the Champions League. So I would sell Gakpo. Would I sell Rodgers for a hit? Stephen says. But would I sell Rodgers for a hit? No, probably not, mate. Probably not. It depends who you have to play. If you have to play him, then maybe. And I think you probably are, but I still won't do it. And Nkunku has close 1 XGI per season and never plays. To be honest with you, actually, Nkunku this week, if you are going to go for a punt, I think he could be potentially a decent shout. Although with Jackson returning, maybe not. But I don't know. I think he's not a bad option. Rodgers to Dango and Dyer to Wissa. Yeah, I like that. The only thing I wouldn't if you can, I wouldn't go to Dango now, because obviously Evan Nielsen comes back, and I think when Evan Nielsen comes back into the fold, Utara won't be playing up front anymore, and potentially you'll lose that sort of attacking output from him. So I would probably go to a different Bournemouth, but if you can afford it, that would be my play. I'm thinking of Gvardiol from 29. He will have great fixtures. Yeah, I think Haaland. I think the Man City assets from 29 look really good. Obviously, I actually think Haaland potentially in 29. He's obviously got Man City at home. I think that's potentially the best captain to shout that week. We'll obviously talk about it close to the time, but I do think that's a really good captain to shout that week. So yeah, yeah, I think Gvardiol on 29 looks really good. You have Clivert already. Oh, that makes it a bit more difficult. I'm lost on what to do right now. Could you potentially do Semenyo? Because I think Semenyo, I know I've said this week, if I had to play one, I would obviously start Utara, but I think if you can have him long term, especially with Evan Nielsen coming back, I think you'll take the place off Utara, to be honest. So if I were you, what I would potentially do is I would probably bring in Semenyo at that point. That's probably what I'd do. I'd do Semenyo, and then I'd do Ndiaye to Wissa. A bench Clivert or Gakpo? Bench Clivert or Gakpo? I would probably bench Gakpo. That's probably where I'd go. Dango or Clivert? That's a good one. Dango or Clivert. To start this week. Clivert. A few things for reasons for that. Again, I've talked about enough, but I will talk about it again. Evan Nielsen potentially back, which obviously takes the minutes off Dango. And obviously Clivert's on penalties, and who doesn't love a penalty taker? This is FPL. Penalties are absolutely unbelievable, the penalties. Yeah, let's have a look, see if we got any more questions. Obviously, we haven't got long till the deadline now. 4 minutes to go. Also, what would you do if you were me and you got this team? What would you do? Would you start Gabriel? Would you and bring out one of my defenders? You could bring out Robinson for sure. Would you start Gabriel over Robinson potentially? Because if you think that Cunha's going to score like I do, maybe that is the play. But obviously Robinson offers that really good attacking output as well. But with what's got the most assists in the league, behind Salah, I believe. Or you could start Mikolenko as well. I don't think I'll do that. It's a shame actually that Fabianski is no longer playing for West Ham, because I think if he was, he would be a really nice player to play this week. As I said, I mean, some guy talked in the chat earlier, didn't he, about Areola. And the sort of options for him starting. Actually, with Mikolenko as well, one of the reasons I'm not starting him is obviously because Sandra J. Patel says, I'd wildcard that team. Oh, thanks, mate. I'd wildcard that team. Edvin says, I'd start Gabriel. Who would you start him over, out of curiosity? Who would you start him over? Because potentially, what I don't hate actually is if you think that Newcastle are going to score, which I think there's probably every chance they do. I don't hate benching Canate for Gabriel. I don't hate that as an idea. I think Robinson I just like because I just like the attacking returns, and Wolves' defence is not unbelievable. I know I've recommended it Nora, but it's not. I like it Nora obviously because of the attacking returns as well. But Robinson you can't bench for me for the attacking returns. I just don't think you can. But what I don't hate is Canate. What I will not be doing is all my midfielders are starting. That I'm not going to change them. Otara's not going to come out. You benching for Robinson. I do get it in terms of a defensive standpoint, because I don't think Fulham are going to keep a clean sheet. But again, do you want to bank on attacking returns? I just think, I don't know. Arsenal need a bounce back. They do, and you're right. Forest are not in particularly good form as well. Obviously I know they lost 4-3 at Newcastle, but Newcastle were really poor in that second half, by the way, weren't they? But I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, you might be right on that one. I think that's a close call. I think it's a close call. Would you, out of curiosity, Edvin, would you start? Yeah, that's what I mean. See, that's what I'm going to ask. Actually, double Liverpool defence is risky. It is. That's what I mean. So, could you go Gabriel over? Could you go Gabriel? I don't know. Could be the way. We've literally got, by the way, 60 seconds left until the deadline. So if you've got any last minute deadline day questions, because just after 6 o'clock, I am going to go. We've got one. Kirkez or Gabby. Kirkez or Gabby. Gabby in terms of... who do you mean by Gabby? Kirkez, because I don't know... Gabrielle, presumably, you mean? Presumably. I would go... Kirkez or Gabriel? I would probably go Kirkez. I would probably... No, I would go Gabriel, actually. I would go Gabriel. That's also the deadline, by the way, so I hope you've made all your transfers. Apologies if you couldn't get through the line, John. But there we are. But yeah, that is the first deadline day stream. Let me know what you think, and if you do watch it afterwards, let me know, sort of, because I want to try and improve these week by week, obviously, and get more of you guys involved and get more comments in. This is the first one, admittedly, so it's been potentially a bit quieter. But yeah, that is the deadline day stream. But as I said, thanks all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. I tried my best with it, so yeah, there we are. And yeah, remember as well, if you have made it to the end, I am not from Manchester. But yeah, thanks all for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.